I smoothed my wedding dress, taking a deep breath as I surveyed the reception hall. The soft glow of fairy lights, the gentle clink of champagne glasses, and the murmur of happy guests should have filled me with joy. Instead, a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. "Mia, darling." My soon-to-be mother-in-law's voice cut through the chatter. I turned to see Helen Bennett striding towards me, microphone in hand, her face a mask of false sweetness. "Oh no," I muttered under my breath, forcing a smile. Helen tapped the microphone, the feedback causing guests to wince. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make about our dear Mia." My father, Ethan, caught my eye from across the room, his brow furrowed with concern. I gave him a slight nod, trying to convey that I could handle this. Helen's voice dripped with disdain as she continued. "You think you're good enough for my son? Prove it. $5,000 a month and your entire bonus. That's what it'll take to be part of this family." The room fell silent. I felt the weight of 100 stares, my cheeks burning with humiliation. Lucas, my new husband, stood frozen beside me, his mouth agape. "Helen, that's enough." My father's voice boomed as he approached, reaching for the microphone. But Helen wasn't finished. "A girl raised by a single father? Please, you need to show us you're worthy of the Bennett name." As the whispers started, growing louder by the second, I locked eyes with my best friend, Clara. Her expression mirrored my shock and disbelief. In that moment, as my perfect day crumbled around me, I realized with startling clarity that this was just the beginning. The Bennetts weren't just overbearing in-laws. They were financial predators, determined to control every aspect of my life. My father's hand on my shoulder steadied me. "Mia, you don't have to dash." I cut him off, my voice stronger than I felt. "No, Dad. I've got this." Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, my eyes never leaving Helen's smug face. The next words out of my mouth would change everything, and I knew it. But as I opened my mouth to speak, I realized that this was about more than just me. It was about standing up to bullies, about preserving my dignity, and about showing the world and myself what I was made of. The memory of my first meeting with the Bennetts flashed through my mind as I stood there, microphone in hand, facing down Helen's smug expression. It was like reliving a nightmare. 6 months ago, I had stood nervously on their doorstep, smoothing my dress and clutching Lucas's hand. "They'll love you," he'd assured me, squeezing my fingers. How wrong he'd been. Helen had opened the door, her eyes sweeping over me with barely concealed disdain. "So this is the girl," she'd said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I'd stepped into their immaculate living room, feeling immediately out of place among the pristine white furniture and gleaming surfaces. Gerald Bennett, Lucas's father, had been waiting, his stern face a mask of disapproval. "Are you ready to join our family?" Helen's voice had been as icy as her smile. I'd nodded, trying to hide my growing unease. "Yes, I'm very excited to dash." Gerald cut me off. "You must promise to devote everything to Lucas. Our family name means something in this town." The weight of their expectations had settled on my shoulders like a lead blanket. I'd glanced at Lucas, hoping for support, but he'd just smiled weakly. "Of course," I'd managed to say, my throat tight. "Family is everything to me." Helen's laugh had been sharp and humorless. "Family? I hear you were raised by a single father. Hardly a proper family, wouldn't you agree, Gerald?" The casual cruelty of her words had stolen my breath. I'd felt my cheeks burn with anger and shame. Now, standing in the reception hall, that same anger coursed through me. I lifted the microphone to my lips, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. "You're right about one thing, Helen," I said, my words ringing out across the stunned silence. "Family is everything, but not the kind of family you're offering." I turned to face the crowd, catching my father's proud smile. "I won't be joining the Bennett family today or any other day. This wedding is off." The gasps and murmurs that erupted were deafening. Lucas stepped forward, his face a mask of confusion and hurt. "Mia, what are you doing?" I met his gaze, feeling a twinge of regret for what could have been. "I'm choosing myself, Lucas. I'm choosing real love and respect over whatever this is." As I walked away, head held high, I heard Helen's shrill voice behind me. "You'll regret this. You're nothing without us." But for the first time since I'd met the Bennetts, I felt truly free. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done living up to anyone else's expectations but my own. As I stormed out of the reception hall, my mind raced back to the night Lucas proposed. It had been perfect, or so I thought. We'd been walking along the beach at sunset, the sky ablaze with oranges and pinks. Lucas had suddenly stopped, taking both my hands in his. "Mia," he'd said, his voice trembling slightly, "I love you more than I ever thought possible. You're everything to me." My heart had soared as he dropped to one knee, pulling out a velvet box. "Will you marry me?" Tears of joy had streamed down my face as I nodded, barely able to choke out a yes. He'd slipped the ring on my finger, and we'd embraced, laughing and crying. "I love you, Mia. You can count on me," Lucas had whispered, holding me close. "We're in this together, no matter what." Now, as I yanked off my wedding dress in the bridal suite, those words rang hollow. Where was that promise when his mother was humiliating me? Where was his support when I needed it most? A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. "Mia, it's Clara. Can I come in?" I opened the door, collapsing into my best friend's arms. "Oh, Clara," I sobbed. "How did everything go so wrong?" She stroked my hair, her voice soothing. "You did the right thing, Mia. You deserve so much better than this." As Clara helped me change, my phone buzzed incessantly. Text after text from Lucas. "Mia, please come back. We can work this out. My parents didn't mean it." I silenced the phone, my resolve strengthening. "I can't go back, Clara. Not after this." "You don't have to," she assured me. "But Mia, there's something you should know." I looked up, seeing the worry in her eyes. "What is it?" Clara took a deep breath. "I overheard Gerald talking to Helen. They've been planning this for months. They want to control your finances, your career, everything. They even talked about—" She hesitated. "About what?" I pressed, dread building in my stomach. "About making sure you and Lucas have children right away. To secure your commitment to the family," Clara finished, disgust evident in her voice. The room spun around me as the full weight of their manipulation hit me. It wasn't just about the money or their prejudice against my upbringing. They wanted to control my entire life, my very future. In that moment, standing in the ruins of what should have been the happiest day of my life, I made a decision. This wasn't just about walking away from a toxic marriage. It was about reclaiming my life and my dignity. I looked at Clara, a newfound determination in my eyes. "I need your help," I said, my voice steady. "We're going to make sure the Bennetts never do this to anyone else again." The days following my aborted wedding were a blur of tears, anger, and confusion. I'd holed up in my apartment, ignoring calls from everyone except my dad and Clara. But I couldn't hide forever. I had to face Lucas. When he showed up at my door, his eyes were red-rimmed and pleading. "Mia, please. We need to talk."
I let him in, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the distance between us feeling like a chasm. "I'm sorry about what happened at the wedding," Lucas began. "My parents were out of line, but they just want what's best for us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What's best for us? "Lucas, they humiliated me in front of everyone we know." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "They're just old-fashioned. They want to make sure we're financially stable. By demanding my entire bonus? By trying to control our lives." I shot back, my voice rising. "That's not old-fashioned. That's manipulation." Lucas's face hardened. "They just want us to be as good a couple as they are." "Is that so wrong?" I stood up, pacing the room. "Lucas, can't you see what they're doing? They're not just meddling. They're trying to dictate our entire future." "You're overreacting," he insisted. "If we just go along with their wishes for a while, they'll back off." That's when it hit me. Lucas wasn't just in denial. He was complicit. He'd known all along what his parents were planning. "Did you know?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. about their plans to control our finances, our careers, even when we have children. The flash of guilt in his eyes told me everything. My world tilted on its axis as the full weight of the betrayal crashed over me. "Mia, it's not like that," Lucas stammered. "They just want to ensure our success. If we follow their plan dash." "Their plan?" I interrupted, my voice shaking with fury. "What about our plan, Lucas? What about the life we were supposed to build together?" He reached for me, but I stepped back. "I love you, Mia. We can make this work." In that moment, looking at the man I thought I knew, I made my decision. "No, Lucas. We can't. I won't live my life according to your parents' demands. And the fact that you're willing to, it tells me everything I need to know." "What are you saying?" he asked, fear creeping into his voice. I took a deep breath, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. "I'm saying it's over. For good this time." As I showed him to the door, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. I was reclaiming my life, one difficult decision at a time. The morning of my wedding day arrived with a sense of dread I couldn't shake. As I sat in front of the mirror, my father's reflection appeared behind me, his eyes filled with concern. "Mia, honey," he said softly, "are you sure about this?" I met his gaze in the mirror, forcing a smile. "I love Lucas, Dad. It'll be fine." But even as I said the words, I felt the lie stick in my throat. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of tension and arguments, with the Bennetts' demands growing more outrageous by the day. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a message from Helen. "Remember, dear, the prenup meeting is tomorrow. Don't forget to bring your financial statements." I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. The ceremony passed in a blur, and before I knew it, we were at the reception. I plastered on a smile, accepting congratulations from guests, all the while feeling like I was suffocating. Then it happened. Helen stumbled to the microphone, clearly drunk, with Gerald close behind her. "Attention, everyone," she slurred. "We have an announcement about our new daughter-in-law." My heart raced as I looked to Lucas, silently pleading for him to stop this. But he just stood there, frozen. Gerald grabbed the mic. "You will give us $5,000 a month and your entire bonus," he demanded, his words slightly slurred, but his eyes sharp with greed. "It's the least you can do for marrying into our family." The room fell silent. I felt all eyes on me, judging, pitying. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I stood up, my legs shaking but my voice steady. "No," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I won't give you a dime." Helen's face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful little dash. That's enough." My father's voice boomed across the room as he stepped between us. "Mia, sweetheart, you don't have to do this." I looked at Lucas, searching for any sign that he would stand up for me for us. But he just stared at the floor, avoiding my gaze. In that moment, I knew. This wasn't just about money. It was about respect, about the life I wanted versus the life they were trying to force on me. I took a deep breath, feeling a strange calm wash over me. "You're right, Dad. I don't have to do this." I turned to face the stunned crowd. "I'm sorry, everyone, but there will be no wedding today. Thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the party." As gasps and murmurs erupted around me, I walked out of the reception hall, my head held high. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I was reclaiming my life, and no one, not the Bennetts, not Lucas, not anyone, was going to take that away from me again. As I walked out of the reception hall, the chaos behind me faded into a dull roar. My mind was racing, my heart pounding. What had I just done? "Mia." Lucas's voice cut through my thoughts. I turned to see him running after me, his face a mix of confusion and anger. What the hell was that? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "That was me refusing to be bullied by your parents anymore, Lucas. And you just stood there and let it happen." His eyes widened. "They were drunk, Mia. We could have dealt with this later." "Later?" I laughed bitterly. "When? After they've taken control of our entire lives?" Before Lucas could respond, Helen's shrill voice pierced the air. "You ungrateful little gold digger." She stormed towards us, Gerald stumbling behind her. I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned to see my father, his eyes blazing with protective fury. "That's enough," he said firmly. Helen sneered. "Oh, look who it is. The single father who couldn't even keep a wife. No wonder your daughter turned out to be such a disappointment." The words hit me like a physical blow. I saw my father flinch, and something inside me snapped. I stepped forward, my voice low and dangerous. "You listen to me, Helen. My father is twice the parent you'll ever be. He taught me love, respect, and the value of hard work. What have you taught Lucas? To be a coward who can't stand up to his own parents." Lucas paled. "Mia, that's not fair, Dash. Isn't it?" I cut him off. "Tell me, Lucas, did you know about their plans? The financial control, the demands about our future children." His hesitation was all the answer I needed. The betrayal cut deep, but it also clarified everything. I turned to address the small crowd that had gathered. "I'm sorry, everyone, but there will be no marriage today. Thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the party." As gasps and murmurs erupted around me, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. I looked at Lucas one last time. "I loved you, Lucas. But I love myself more." With that, I walked away, my father by my side. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I was reclaiming my life, and no one, not the Bennetts, not Lucas, not anyone, was going to take that away from me again. As we reached the car, my father squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Your mother would be too." Tears stung my eyes, but for the first time in months, they were tears of relief. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face it on my own terms. The weeks following my aborted wedding were a whirlwind. I threw myself into my work, determined to prove to myself and everyone else that I could stand on my own 2 feet. But the Bennetts weren't done with me yet. One morning, I arrived at the office to find a crowd gathered around Olivia's desk. She pulled me aside, her face grim. "Mia, you need to see this." She handed me her phone, open to a local news website. The headline made my blood run cold. "Local business tycoon's daughter leaves groom at the altar. Gold digger or victim?" The article was a hatchet job, full of anonymous sources painting me as a calculating gold digger who'd used Lucas for his family's connections. I felt sick as I scrolled through, recognizing Helen's venomous words in every line. "This is going to be bad for the company," I whispered, my mind racing. Olivia squeezed my arm. "It's not your fault, Mia. We'll figure this out." But the damage was done. By lunchtime, our biggest client had called, threatening to pull their account. My father's voice was strained when he called me into his office. "Mia, honey, I hate to ask this, but maybe it would be best if you took some time off. Just until this blows over." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "Dad, you can't be serious. You know none of this is true." He sighed heavily. "I know, sweetheart. But perception is everything in business. We can't afford to lose any more clients." As I left his office, my phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "We need to talk. Meet me at our spot in an hour." I hesitated, then replied, "Fine." An hour later, I found Lucas waiting for me in the park where he'd proposed. He looked terrible, his eyes red-rimmed and haunted. "Mia, I'm so sorry," he began. "I had no idea my parents would go this far. I've tried to stop them, but they won't listen. They're threatening to cut me off completely if I don't go along with their story." I felt a flicker of pity, quickly extinguished by anger. "And what about me, Lucas? What about my reputation, my career?" He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I still love you, Mia. We can fix this. If we just give my parents what they want, Dash." "No," I cut him off, my voice hard. "I won't let them control me. And the fact that you're even suggesting it. God, Lucas, don't you see how toxic this is?" As I turned to leave, Lucas called out desperately, "What are you going to do?" I paused, a plan already forming in my mind. "I'm going to fight back. And I'm going to win." Walking away, I felt a strange mix of fear and determination. The Bennetts had tried to destroy me, but they'd underestimated one crucial fact. I was Ethan Collins' daughter. And Collins' women don't go down without a fight. 6 months after the wedding that wasn't, I stood at the podium, surveying the packed conference room. My father beamed from the front row, and I felt a surge of pride and gratitude. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice steady, I'm honored to announce that Collins and Associates has just secured the Westbrook account, our largest client to date. The room erupted in applause. As I continued my presentation, I caught sight of a familiar face slipping into the back of the room. Lucas. Our eyes met briefly before I refocused on my speech. After the presentation, as colleagues congratulated me, Lucas approached hesitantly. Mia, can we talk? We stepped into a quiet corner. Lucas looked haggard, a shadow of his former self. I heard about your success. I'm really proud of you. I nodded, surprised by the lack of bitterness I felt. Thank you, Lucas. How are you doing? He sighed heavily. I've left my parents' company. Started over at a small firm. It's been eye-opening. Before I could respond, my father joined us, clapping me on the shoulder. That's my girl. Mia, the board wants to discuss your promotion to junior partner. Lucas's eyes widened. Wow, Mia. That's incredible. As my father excused himself, Lucas turned to me, his expression serious. I owe you an apology, Mia. I should have stood up for you. I was a coward, and I've regretted it every day since. I took a deep breath, feeling the last of my anger dissipate. Thank you, Lucas. That means a lot. He nodded, a sad smile on his face. You deserve all of this success, Mia. I'm sorry I couldn't be the partner you needed. As Lucas walked away, I felt a chapter of my life closing. I turned to find my best friend, Clara, waiting with a champagne flute. To new beginnings, she offered, raising her glass. I clinked my glass against hers, grinning. To new beginnings, and to never settling for less than we deserve. Later that evening, as I sat in my father's study, he handed me a framed photo. It was my mother, young and radiant, standing in front of the company's first office. Your mother would be so proud of you, Mia, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You've got her spirit, her determination. I traced my mother's face in the photo, feeling a connection I'd never fully appreciated before. Thanks, Dad, for everything. He pulled me into a tight hug. I'm proud of you, Mia. You're going to be a great leader. As I left the office that night, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been painful, but it had led me here, stronger, wiser, and surrounded by true love and respect. I was Mia Collins, daughter of Rachel and Ethan, and I was ready to write my own story.